The text came in while I was reviewing quarterly reports at my downtown office. Maya's message was characteristically blunt and unapologetic, as if selling someone else's property was as casual as borrowing a cup of sugar. Hey sis. Hope you're doing well in Chicago. I sold your old Honda to help with rent. Got $3,000 for it from Premium Auto Sales on 5th Street. Don't worry, I'll pay you back when I can. Thanks for understanding. Hugs and kisses. I stared at the message for a full minute, reading it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. My sister had just admitted to selling my car without permission, while I was away on a business trip. What Maya didn't know was that Premium Auto Sales wasn't just any dealership. It was my dealership. Part of a 7-location automotive empire I'd built over the past 8 years, starting with a single used car lot and growing into the largest independent dealer network in the tri-state area. She also didn't know that the old Honda she just sold was a 1994 Civic Si that I'd been restoring as a passion project. To her, it was junk sitting in my driveway. To me, it was a $15,000 collector's item with a rebuilt engine and custom modifications. I called the dealership owner, myself. Premium Auto Sales, this is Marcus speaking. Marcus Williams was my general manager at the 5th Street location, a sharp guy in his 40s who'd been with me since the early days. Marcus, it's Victoria. I need you to pull up a transaction from today. Someone sold you a 1994 Honda Civic Si. Let me check. Yeah, we had a woman come in around noon. Teal-colored Civic, manual transmission. Pretty clean for its age. Paid $3,500 for it. $3,500. Maya had told me $3,000, which meant she'd already skimmed $500 off the top. Marcus, I need you to reverse that transaction immediately. Reverse it? Is there a problem with the paperwork? The car was stolen. Stolen? But the woman had keys and registration. She's my sister. She took my car without permission while I'm out of town. Jesus, Victoria. I'm sorry, I had no idea. She seemed legitimate, had all the documents. It's not your fault. She's been using my spare key to move the car when she visits. But selling it crosses a line. What do you want me to do? Reverse the transaction and blacklist the seller, I instructed. Call the police and report it as receiving stolen property. I want this handled by the book. Are you sure? She is your sister. I'm sure. And Marcus? When the police ask for my statement, tell them I'll be flying back tonight to press charges. An hour later, police knocked on her door. I wasn't there to see it, but Maya called me screaming at 4:17 p.m. What did you do? She shrieked into the phone. I reported a theft. The police are here. They're saying I sold stolen property. Because you did. It's your stupid car. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, Maya. I wasn't stealing. I was borrowing. You sold it. That's not borrowing, that's theft. I could hear voices in the background, probably the officers trying to calm her down. Victoria, please. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Was it? Because your text seemed pretty clear about your intentions. I needed the money for rent. You know I'm struggling. So get a job. I have a job. Working 10 hours a week at a coffee shop isn't a career, Maya. You're 28 years old. Not everyone can be a big shot like you. Big shot. If only she knew. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this wasn't just about a car. This was about 8 years of watching my family take me for granted while I built something extraordinary right under their noses. When I graduated college with a business degree, everyone expected me to get a nice office job and settle down. Instead, I used my savings to buy a tiny used car lot on the outskirts of town. My family thought I'd lost my mind. You're wasting your education, my mother had said. Car sales is a man's business, my father had added. Maya had been the cruelest. You're going to end up one of those desperate saleswomen in cheap suits begging people to buy junk. But I had a vision. I saw how inefficient the used car market was, how much room there was for someone who combined smart business practices with genuine customer service. I worked 18-hour days, learned everything about automotive repair and financing, and slowly built a reputation for honest dealing. The first year was brutal. I lived in a studio apartment, ate ramen noodles for dinner, and put every penny back into the business. My family's weekly check-ins always included some variation of, "Are you ready to give up this phase and get a real job yet?" By year 2, I'd hired 3 employees and moved to a bigger lot. My family still saw it as a cute hobby that would eventually run its course. Year 3 brought the first acquisition, a failing dealership across town that I bought for pennies on the dollar and turned profitable within 6 months. That's when I incorporated as Premium Automotive Group and started thinking bigger. Years 4 through 8 were a whirlwind of strategic growth. I identified underperforming dealerships, bought them cheap, implemented my systems and watched profits soar. I also diversified into automotive financing, extended warranties and fleet sales to corporate clients. By last month, Premium Automotive Group owned 7 dealerships, employed over 200 people and generated annual revenue of $43 million. I personally owned 80% of the company, making my net worth just north of $12 million. But here's the thing, my family had no idea. To them, I was still Victoria who works at the car lot. They'd never asked about my business beyond polite small talk. They'd never visited any of my locations. When I bought my house in the suburbs, they assumed I'd gotten lucky with a loan. When I drove newer cars, they figured it was a dealer perk. Maya, in particular, had made a habit of treating me like her personal ATM. She'd call when she needed money for rent, for car repairs, for medical bills, for whatever crisis of the month she'd created. And I'd helped her every time because she was my sister. But I'd also been keeping track. Over the past 3 years, I'd given Maya approximately $18,000 in loans that she'd never paid back. I'd covered her security deposit on her apartment, her car insurance when she let it lapse, her credit card minimums when she was behind, and countless smaller emergencies. She treated my generosity like an entitlement, never expressing genuine gratitude, never making any effort to become financially independent. And now she'd crossed the line from borrowing to stealing. The phone was still in my hand, Maya still yelling on the other end. Victoria, are you listening to me? The police want to arrest me. Then maybe you shouldn't have committed a crime. I'll pay you back. With what money? You just told me you needed $3,000 for rent. I'll get the money somewhere. Maya, do you have any idea what that car was worth? It's a 20-year-old Honda. It's a restored C with a rebuilt engine, custom suspension and period-correct modifications. You sold a $15,000 collector's item for $3,000. Silence. $15,000? At least. Maybe more at auction. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You saw something you thought was worthless, so you stole it. Victoria, please. I'll make this right. How? You owe me $18,000 in unpaid loans. You just stole $15,000 worth of property, and you're facing criminal charges for receiving stolen property. $18,000? That's ridiculous. I have records, Maya. Every loan, every payment I made on your behalf, every time you promised to pay me back and didn't. Those weren't loans. You're my sister. That's what family does. No, Maya. Family doesn't take advantage of each other. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie. I never lied to you. You told me you got $3,000 for the car. The dealership paid you $3,500. Another silence. That's different. Is it? I could hear the police officers talking to her in the background, explaining her options. She was probably going to be arrested, which meant I needed to cut this conversation short and fly home to deal with the aftermath. Maya, I'm hanging up now. I suggest you call a lawyer. Victoria, wait. Don't do this. I'm your sister. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. I hung up and immediately called my assistant to book the next flight home. Then I called my lawyer to make sure we were handling everything correctly. Maya might be family, but business was business. The flight from Chicago to Denver gave me 3 hours to think about what I wanted to accomplish. Part of me was furious and wanted to throw the book at her. But part of me, the part that still remembered the little girl who used to follow me around asking for piggyback rides, wanted to find a way to help her learn from this without destroying her life. By the time I landed, I'd made my decision. Maya had been released on her own recognizance, pending charges. She was staying at my parents' house, probably crying and playing the victim. I drove straight there. My mother answered the door with red eyes and a defensive expression. Victoria, I think we need to talk. Yes, we do. She led me to the living room where Maya was curled up on the couch looking miserable. My father sat in his recliner, clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. Before anyone says anything, I began, I want to make something clear. Maya committed a crime. She stole my property and sold it. The fact that we're related doesn't change that. It was a misunderstanding, my mother protested. No, it wasn't. Maya knew exactly what she was doing. She needed money for rent. So do millions of other people. They don't steal from their families. Maya looked up at me with tear-stained cheeks. Victoria, I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't think. That's the problem, Maya. You never think. You just take. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked how I was doing before asking for money? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. When was the last time you offered to help me with anything? Nothing. When was the last time you even asked what I do for work? You sell cars. What else? I don't know. I pulled out my phone and showed her the Premium Automotive Group website. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the list of locations. You own all of these? I am Premium Automotive Group, Maya. I built this company from nothing while you all dismissed it as a phase. My parents were staring at the phone screen in shock. 7 dealerships? My father asked. 7 so far. I'm looking at 3 more acquisitions next year. But how? Hard work. Smart decisions. Taking risks. All the things you told me not to do. My mother sank into a chair. We had no idea. Because you never asked. You were all so convinced that I was wasting my life that you never bothered to find out what I was actually accomplishing. Maya was still staring at the phone. The dealership where I sold the car is mine. Which means you stole from me and then tried to sell my property back to me. Oh my God. The good news is that since I own the dealership, I can control how this gets handled. The bad news is that you've put me in an impossible position. What do you mean? I mean that if I don't press charges, I'm essentially telling my employees that it's okay to accept stolen merchandise as long as the thief is related to the boss. But if I do press charges, I'm sending my own sister to jail. Maya started crying again. Please don't send me to jail. I'll do anything. Anything. Yes. Get a real job. I have a job. 10 hours a week at a coffee shop isn't a job, it's a hobby. I'm talking about a 40-hour-a-week benefits and career path job. Doing what? I don't have any skills. Then develop some. Go back to school. Learn a trade. Start at the bottom somewhere and work your way up. But that will take years. Yes, it will. That's how careers work. She looked around the room as if searching for support from our parents. What about rent? What about my bills? What about them? I can't afford my apartment on an entry-level salary. Then move somewhere cheaper. Get a roommate. Live within your means. Victoria, my mother interrupted, surely you can help her transition. I've been helping her transition for 3 years, Mom. I've given her $18,000 and she's more dependent now than when we started. 18,000, my father repeated. Want to see the spreadsheet? Maya was looking increasingly panicked. Victoria, please. I know I messed up, but I can't just start over with nothing. You're not starting with nothing. You're starting with a clean slate, which is more than a lot of people get. But what if I can't find a job? Then you'll be motivated to try harder. What if I can't afford my apartment? Then you'll find a cheaper one. What if? Maya, stop. You're 28 years old. It's time to take responsibility for your own life. I stood up and pulled a business card from my wallet. This is my lawyer's number. Call him tomorrow. If you're willing to enter a formal repayment plan for the money you owe me, and if you can show me that you're actively looking for real employment, I'll consider dropping the criminal charges. What kind of repayment plan? $50 a month until the debt is paid off. That's 30 years at current levels. $50? That's nothing. It's something. And it's consistent. If you can stick to it for 6 months while holding down a real job, we can revisit the terms. And if I can't? Then you'll go to court and face whatever consequences the judge decides. Maya took the business card with shaking hands. Victoria, my mother said softly, don't you think you're being a little harsh? Mom, I've enabled Maya's irresponsible behavior for years. I thought I was helping her, but I was actually making it worse. This is me helping her for real. By threatening to put her in jail? By giving her consequences for her actions. For the first time in her adult life. My father cleared his throat. Victoria, we owe you an apology. For what? For not taking your business seriously. For not supporting your success. For not recognizing what you've accomplished. Thank you, Dad. That means something. How big is your company really? Last year we did 43 million in revenue. I employ over 200 people across 7 locations. By God. And I did it all while you were telling me to get a real job. Maya looked up from the business card. Victoria, I really am sorry. Not just about the car but about everything. I never realized. Realized what? How much you've done for me. How much you've accomplished. How badly I've treated you. Maya, I don't need apologies. I need to see change. I'll change. I promise. Don't promise me. Prove it. Over the next 6 months, Maya did prove it. She got a job as a receptionist at a medical office, moved to a smaller apartment and made every payment on time. She also started taking night classes in medical administration, working toward a certification that would open up better opportunities. The criminal charges were quietly dropped after she completed her first semester and made 6 consecutive payments. The car, which had been returned to me undamaged, went back to its place in my garage where it belonged. More importantly, our family dynamic shifted completely. My parents started asking about my business, visiting my dealerships and introducing me to their friends as our daughter the CEO. Maya began calling me for advice instead of money, sharing her career goals and asking for guidance on everything from resume writing to workplace politics. And when I acquired my 8th dealership the following year, expanding into luxury vehicles for the first time, my family was there for the grand opening. Maya even brought her boyfriend who turned out to be a mechanic interested in classic car restoration. You know, she said as we watched customers browsing the showroom, I never thanked you for teaching me how to stand on my own 2 feet. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You saved my life by refusing to enable me anymore. You saved your own life by choosing to change. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell us how successful you were? We could have been celebrating your achievements instead of worrying about your choices. I thought about that for a moment. Because I needed to know that you loved me for who I was, not what I had accomplished. Money changes relationships and I wanted to make sure ours was built on something real. And now I know that you respect me enough to take my advice even when it's hard to hear. That's worth more than any amount of money. Maya smiled and squeezed my arm. I'm proud to be your sister. I'm proud to be yours too. And for the first time in years I meant it completely. 3 years later, Maya had been promoted to office manager at the medical practice and was engaged to the mechanic, who had opened his own restoration shop specializing in vintage Hondas. She'd paid off her debt to me 6 months early and was saving for a down payment on a house. My parents had become my biggest supporters, attending every business award ceremony and bragging about my success to anyone who would listen. They'd also started volunteering at a financial literacy nonprofit, teaching young adults about budgeting and responsible spending. And my 1994 Civic C? It was still in my garage, fully restored and occasionally driven on weekends. But now it represented something different than when Maya had sold it. It was no longer just a car I was working on in my spare time. It was a reminder that sometimes the people we love need us to be strong enough to let them fail so they can learn to succeed on their own terms. The best part was that Maya never again asked me for money. But she did ask if I wanted to go car shopping with her when she was ready to trade in her old Toyota. I want something reliable, she told me as we walked through the lot. Something I can afford on my own. Smart choice, I said. I learned from the best. And as I watched her negotiate her own deal, paying with her own money for a car she'd chosen herself, I realized that this was what real family success looked like. Not one person supporting everyone else, but everyone supporting each other by taking responsibility for their own lives. It had taken a stolen car and criminal charges to get us here, but we'd finally figured out how to be a real family instead of just people who happened to share the same last name. And that was worth more than all the dealerships in the world.